I have been sort of career coaching informally since around 2012. And I have a similar community as well called ClearCareer. So a lot of my philosophy is helping people see their own value and uncover their own value when they've been sort of battered down for so long by the job search. And you're kind of at a point where like, you feel like a pile of garbage. Like, why would anyone hire me? And when you're in that mindset, like, if you don't like yourself, if you don't believe in yourself, why would anybody else? And so my job has always been, I need to boost people up. I need to remind people of who they are, because just because you're not landing interviews, just because you're not landing a job, doesn't mean that you're not someone valuable. You're not someone who has lots of incredible skills. The job market is tough, but that doesn't speak to who you are. That doesn't define you. And so that's the initial message I want to start with. That's really sort of the vibe I like to go with. Um, and yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Izzy. I'm so glad that you're here and that you're willing to give back and able to extend your wisdom and expertise to everybody. So let's get into this. Resumes. This is a really important topic for anyone that's on the job search. This is what we're playing. This is our tool. This is what our key to unlock opportunities. There's a lot of buzz around resumes, and literally we all could be spending the whole day updating one resume for one job. It's not the most effective process. It's exhausting. We don't know if we're getting it right. We're fingers crossed, think we're doing everything right. Then we don't get interviews back. So this topic is really important. And I think if we could just start with where we go wrong, like things like I want to move through that quickly because I'd like to get into like how to do this right. But if you could give us some points on where we're going wrong with resumes, where we're over investing our time with resumes.
Yeah, sure. So when it comes to resumes, or let's say when it comes to your job search, I really like to diagnose it quickly in the following ways. If you've been applying to a lot of jobs, and by a lot, I mean like dozens, 20, 30, 40, 50, and you're not getting any interviews, it's one of two things that's typically the problem. One, you're either applying to the wrong jobs that are clearly not a fit for you, um, or you're not telling the right story. Or two, your resume isn't connecting the dots for the reader. It's not showing people your value. And so when it comes to that, there are tweaks we can make to your resume to really show and highlight the story that you want to tell, to help people understand, to help the reader understand how you can help them solve their problems. And that's the really big key I want everybody to understand here. As sort of antithetical as it might sound, your resume ultimately is not about you. It's about the employer and how you will help them solve their problems. And that's where most people go wrong right at the beginning. Most people, without any coaching and without, having had much experience writing resumes, most people tend to write their resumes sort of as a top to bottom, this is everything that I've done in my career. It's often very general. It often doesn't really connect the dots in terms of having specific achievements and metrics and things that show proof that you're good at your job, but instead speak a little bit more generically. So now entering in, where do people go wrong with their resume? What are we over investing in? I want everybody here to just like take this, what I'm about to say, and then erase it from your mind completely. Beating the ATS. Take that sentence and toss it in the garbage. It's not about the ATS. It's not robots that are reviewing your resume. The applicant tracking systems are essentially a folder to keep your information, your emails, your resume, your cover letter, um, organized for the recruiters, for the companies that are looking to hire you. That's pretty much it. There isn't too much more fanciness to it. There isn't a ton of AI that's used to like completely reject people and stuff. There are, I'm not going to say there's none, but it's really, really insignificant. And people really blow that out of proportion. They go, it's, I apply and then I get rejected in 5 minutes. A lot of the time, it's just because the person who is reading it happened to be looking through the system and they got it and they saw your resume and they rejected you because, or let's reframe that. They released you from the application process is what I like to use now.
They released you. That's some good phrasing.
That's the term that I've heard recruiters use now, which I am much more favorable of because they're not rejecting you. The second is templates. So when it comes to things like people, you'll often see people talking about like a template that beats the ATS and things like that.
Yeah.
Also, take it, throw it in the garbage. Like it's not about the template. When it comes to it, it's really all about the content of your resume. What is the job posting actually saying? And how are you helping answer the questions that are sort of riddled in the job posting? And I'm going to walk through a little exercise on how to do that with Susan. So we'll
Oh,
dive into that in a
gosh.
little bit.
Okay, so my mouth is a bit on the floor right now. There's a few like power punches you just put there. The resume is not about me, but it's my resume. Like, I think we all just need to hear that one more time because that's a huge mind shift to go from this is all about me, showcase me, I'm so great, this is all the things that I've done, to be like, yeah, some of my stuff is really not relevant unless it's specific to your company or this particular job. That's a big mind shift. The other piece that you just said is like, don't worry about the robots. We've all been so tuned to be like, those keywords are going to get you through, or like, if you're formatted a certain way, it's not going to show up on the ATS. And so it will just be knocked through. So that's not the reality because there's people here in the chat saying that's true. It's not necessarily the system that's knocking you out. Wow.
That's right. It's usually never the system. It's always going to be a person. And the like keywords are going to help highlight you a little bit. It might make it a little bit more easy to read, but really, I want you to stop focusing so much on keywords and more on like the macro. Like, is this resume answering the questions that are being asked in the job description? And that's a little bit of a reframe I'm going to show everyone how
All
to do
right, we're
today.
like, we're ready for you now, Izzy. Like right now, you've really got my attention, and I'm like, okay, tell me your process. I want to understand your process. So we've all heard like, yes, you do have to customize your resume according to the job that you're applying for. You do need to tailor it. Can you just recap like why that's so important? Or I guess maybe you're going to go into that in fall.
Yeah, sure. So we definitely are going to dig into it, but essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to show a company, the hiring manager from a specific company, that you can solve their problems, right? And when you read a job description, they're essentially outlining some of their problems. They're saying we need someone who can do this, we need someone who can do this, we need someone who can do this. And so what I want everyone to think about is how do you flip every sentence that's in a job description into a question and then answer that question? That's a really good initial exercise to do. And now some people then go, okay, well, doing that for every single job is going to take a million years.
Yes,
Like I
it's
don't
going to
have
take
time to
too
do that.
long. Yes, we're all nodding. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the main hack here and the sort of the advice I would give is when you get focused enough in the right types of things that you're looking for, you're going to have a trend of different types of jobs. Let's say you're looking for like project manager positions, or you're looking for, software architect positions. You're looking for whatever. You're applying for a different specific kind of job, and then there may be like a few branches. Let's say you've got like three different sort of branches that are all in that same vein. Project manager, program manager, project coordinator. They all,
Mhm.
they all share a lot of similar things, and you might tweak them a little bit differently. Now, if you go and take, let's say, 10 different job descriptions, or make it a little bit easier. Let's say 3 job descriptions for project manager in the fintech space, let's say. They're going to share a lot of commonalities, and you're going to go and write out your answers to the questions of that job. And now you've got one sort of sub master resume. Your master resume is essentially everything that you've ever done, all the achievements that you've ever accomplished.
Okay.
Now you've got a sub version of that, which is your project management for
Yeah.
fintech companies. And these are the things that I specifically do or have accomplished that will help a fintech company with their project management. So that's how I would go about it. And then you don't have to work so hard on like tailoring it and spending an hour each time, because you've done the work in advance of creating a few different subcategory resumes that you can then continue to use. Then it's just about a few minor tweaks,
Yeah.
maybe like ten minutes tweaking a resume rather than an hour and a half or 2 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, however long. I've seen it all.
Yeah. Wow, this is great. Okay, so master resume, branching out into kind of your subs, and you were talking about it by function. So like sub, this is me as a project manager, or this is me as a partnership person, or this is me as an operations person. But sometimes industries really differ too, right? Like if you're going after an agency versus a nonprofit, like the type of stuff. Do you also see subs as like industry specific too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it
Yeah.
really depends on like what you're focusing on. Are you focusing on making an industry shift, or are you focusing on making a job shift, or are you sort of opening yourself up a little bit? That's one of the things that I find people tend to do. I'm not getting responses, I'm not getting interviews, so they tend to like widen and go, okay, I'm going to apply for like more stuff, I guess, because it's not working. When in reality, the thing that they should be doing is like getting even narrower
Mhm.
most of the time,
Yeah.
or more specific.
Yeah.
And then you're speaking very specific results for a very specific type of audience, company, and role.
Right. Okay. Okay. I think you also dropped a hack in there that I like want to dig into, or maybe you're planning to dig into a little bit, but you
Hmm.
take the bullets of the job description and change them into questions.
Hmm.
Um, like we all basically want to understand like time saving hacks in order to
Hmm.
do this. Maybe you're about to go into that about how to
Oh yeah.
identify what to put there in terms of tailoring it.
Yeah, I got a ton of hacks that I'm the
You
I'm
do have
the
a ton of hacks. If anyone's not following Izzy on LinkedIn or paying attention to ClearCareer, you should. This man's got hacks.
So I'm all about saving time. My entire ethos around this has always been, how do I make things easier and faster for people? And so I've created this huge library of ChatGPT power prompts. And these like go far beyond what you typically see, which is just like, write this one sentence in ChatGPT and it'll work out. Like I've really honed in on the prompts that I give it so that it has a lot of very specific examples of good results.
Mhm.
And so here's what I'm going to do. Let's actually go and dig into this job description that Susan here is applying for. So give me 1 second here. I'm going to pull this up and I'll share my screen. Is that okay? Can we dive right into this part?
Sure,
Or did,
absolutely. Yeah.
okay, great. So just so we don't have to do this multiple times here. And give me 1 sec. Can everybody see my screen here
Yes.
first? Yes. Okay. So we've got here, actually, let me close this other stuff. We've got this job posting here, okay? Program manager, talent, and performance management. So what I want to do, let's just do this like the simple manual way first, and then I'll show you how to do it a bit faster. So I'm going to open up a Google Doc, and I'm going to very simply copy this whole job posting and stick it in here. Okay, and so what we're going to do is this is a bit of a description of what Stack It Up does. Let me make this a little better, bigger. Can everyone see this okay?
Yes.
No, I'm not ruining anybody's eyes right now. Okay, so we're seeking a dynamic experience program manager in talent and performance management. Okay, so what I like to do is flip this into a question. So when when have I led the center when have I led performance management for an organization, right? That's what it's saying here. Then when have I done talent planning? When, what are some of my achievements? Let's say here's a different way of wording it related to organizational effectiveness. So you can basically take every sentence
Yeah.
in a job description, and I actually like to break it out like this. And we'll break out every sentence and then turn it into a question. When have I done this? What are some of the achievements that I've done? Now, let's pop over to Susan here. When you read this job description in your resume, do you feel like you've answered these questions?
Well, now that we're doing this exercise, no.
Right. And that's typically the answer. Most people aren't typically answering the questions. They're not formulated as questions, but if you flip it into a question, it really helps you see it from a different perspective. And most people don't do that. Now, that's what they're looking for. They're saying, this is what we need. And we're looking for people who can do this. And your job is to prove to them that you've done it before or that you've done similar things and you're confident you can do it. So, what about if you don't have the specific experience that they're looking for? Well, you want to address all the specific things that you can, that you have done. And then what do you do if you don't have the exact experience they're looking for in some areas? Anybody want to venture a guess? You can drop it in the chat. What would you do?
I'm waiting for someone.
I just want to say this is superpower stuff. I can't even believe that I've never thought about doing this before. It just seems
It's
like it would
like,
make the whole process much less stressful too. I'm amazed right now. That's all I have.
I'm glad to hear that. It's like a stupidly simple thing that you'd think, but like it just goes over everybody's head, including myself, honestly. So I'm not exempt from this. Um, so
Your question was, you asked the question, Izzy, like what happens when there's a question you've put there and you can't do it? So for example,
right.
when have I done talent planning? I haven't done talent planning. Now, what are we going to put there, Izzy? What do we do?
Okay, so let me direct that right back at you, Amy. So you haven't done talent planning. What have you done that's similar to that? Have you done other
Uh,
kinds of planning? Have you
yeah.
organized people in any way? What other things have you done that's similar to that?
Yeah, yeah. So you have to break it. You just basically have to look in deeper at that task and try to find parallels of things that you have, or yeah, things that you have done that would lead into that.
Yeah, and that's what transferable skills are, right? What have you done that like as closely as possible helps make the reader confident that this is something that you can do even if you haven't done it.
Mhm.
You've done something similar. You've worked with similar people. Let's say you're going to be a scrum master or something like that. You haven't done certain elements of the scrum rituals in a formalized way. Okay, so you haven't done that, but like, have you led agile teams? Have you done that work before? Maybe yes. And so how do you speak to those specific things that bridge those gaps, that fill in the gaps?
I
Mhm.
think too, you said something about like like even for yourself, you did this job informally. And I
Yeah.
think that's also something for all of us to reflect on of like when have I done this informally on a team? I've definitely mentored people for a longer than I've been a manager, or what have you. And I think that's also something maybe interesting to reflect on.
Yeah, totally. So here's another fun trick that is like actually one of my community members introduced this to me, and I'm like all about it now. It's
Oh
my
my
favorite
gosh.
thing.
All right.
So who here has used Google's Notebook LM tool? Does anybody know who that is? Put like a thumbs up emoji or raise your hand if you have any idea what I'm talking about.
No, we're not getting any
Anybody?
takers.
All right. So this is going to blow everybody's mind, and I'm really excited for it.
Okay, sorry, say it again. Notebook what?
Notebook LM. So here, Notebook LM. You can just Google it, you'll find it.
Okay,
I'm dropping it in the chat here.
perfect.
Okay, so what this does is it is an AI tool that you can put information into, you can put documents into, and it generates an eerily real podcast between two people about whatever you feed it. And so the cool thing is you can drop in your resume and you'll have two people podcasting about you. So that's one cool way of doing it. Another thing is you can drop in a job description so you really get like another way of understanding what types of things that this particular job is looking for. And just like hearing people talk about it is just such a different way of hearing it. So so I've got this huge library of ChatGPT prompts that I was talking about. And one of them is related to objections. Identify employer objections and concerns. Okay, so what I'm going to do is grab this, open up my ChatGPT. Oops. And I'm going to put in this prompt. Based on the job description and my resume attached, make a list of potential objections a hiring manager might have regarding my experience for the role. Now, let's go and plug in this job description. Doesn't have to be fancy. We'll just paste it in. And then let me go grab Susan's resume here. I'm going to paste that in here too. There we go. And let's see what it tells us. Okay.
Thank you, Susan, for being our guinea pig. Thank you.
Objection. Limited experience with
You're
implementing
welcome. I'm trying to be very put myself out there.
Processes with other HR functions. So what this table is doing for us is it's telling us what the potential objection is that the hiring manager might have and a potential strategy that you can use to overcome that objection based on your experience, based on at least what your resume has told us so far. So Susan, this is saying
highlighting a
highlight
lot of
transferable skills in process improvement and program implementation, onboarding surveys, recruitment at McMaster, emphasize quick adaptability, lack of jobs experience in job architecture and competency frameworks, limited global high growth tech sector experience. I find that when this table pops up too, most people go, well, okay, yeah, I don't have that one, but I do have that one. Okay, but that just means it's not in your resume. So you got to go and plug that in. And so this is a really great way to see what's missing from your resume, but also when you're prepping for interviews too, really, really great tool that you can use to prepare for some of those scary objections people would have.
Wow.
This is great because I'm betting
I
that
can't hear you, Susan. I'm not sure if it's just me or everybody.
I think it's just you, Izzy. I don't think you
It's me.
can hear
It's me.
us.
Okay, one second. Let me see what's wrong here. Da, 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 da. Why is it me?
Well, we'll let Izzy figure that out. I just want to say, like Susan, the key piece is it's just not in your resume. It's not that you don't
I
have
can't
Well,
hear anything you're saying.
and
I'm sorry. That's
and
me.
that's what I was going to say is that I bet the majority of the people on the call are thinking the same thing I am right now, which is I have a limited space on my resume of what to put in there. And I have all of this experience, like all of it that it's saying is lacking.
Yeah.
It's just I haven't selected the right things to include on the resume for that particular job. Like the one about the very first point about hasn't implemented an HRIS system. I've done that twice, just
Right.
like it's like from scratch.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think this relates to what Cicero said in the chat about
yeah,
at the very beginning, do you have to tailor your resume for every job? And I think, well, you don't have to, but you probably should.
yeah,
And if you don't, your results are probably going to be worse, right? You're going to
yeah.
miss that job that you think is perfect for you, because you don't even get to the table. And I think this also relates to this thing I've been obsessed with is just like you have to train to do this. Like you have to build the muscles for the job hunt, and it's different than doing the job. And everything I'm seeing here is like a systematic way to kind of do that through the job description, which is really fascinating for me. I feel like this would have, oh my God, so save so much time and
I
headache for me.
know.
Like, come on, Amy, like seriously.
Seriously.
Uh,
Okay, wait. I
oh,
want to go back now that Izzy's back. I want to go back to that question because what Susan said was a really good question. Izzy, Susan, do you mind just repeating what you said about how do you fit it
Yeah,
all?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Izzy, when you like it somebody said in the chat, it seems so obvious now that I'm seeing it, but my problem has always been is that I have a limited space on my resume of what I'm going to include of my accomplishments. And I'm clearly just not doing this piece of it because everything that is on that list of objections, like I have experience with that, extensive experience on it. I just didn't put it in the right
Yeah.
way.
You just didn't put
Mhm.
it. Yeah. So how do you fit it? How do we do that?
It's hard to do. You have to sort of figure out what, if you can distill it down to what their top 3 or 4 priorities are, can you really, can you really ship this resume with not everything, but enough teasers to get the interview? Because the resume is not to get the job. The resume is really just to unlock the interviews, to give you the shot at being interviewed. And then that's where you can dig into things more.
But
So how do you give the summarized version of everything that really speak to the metrics and give it a good summary of everything before you get the interview?
I have to say though, going through this process would enhance your interview in such a big way, right? Because you would be so narrowed and you've already done the work in terms of the T chart of like what you need, what I have.
Mhm.
It
yeah, I
would,
feel like you would have like Jedi mind trick stuff. Like you would
yeah.
see the question coming and be like, "No, nah, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for that," rather than being trying to think on the spot, which I found myself doing a lot, and then after regretting not having told a story more clearly or whatever,
Yeah.
and knowing that was a factor.
Yeah, I mean, it'll still happen, right? This isn't like a fully comprehensive tool that can predict every left-wing question that comes in, but it'll do a good job at least preparing you for some of the things that might be thrown your way.
Yeah, yeah. There's interest in your prompts, Izzy. If anyone on the call wants to see more of your AI prompts, that list, how can they get access to that?
I'm going to drop a link to all the different things that I referenced. So you'll have links to all that. I'm not sure how the best way to send that over to you guys is, Amy, but I'll have like a document with all the links we
Oh
talked
my
about.
gosh, Izzy, you're amazing. You are amazing. You have like truly showed us a completely different way to go about this and break it down in a really kind of structured format that can get us through a lot easier.
Mhm.
And I think, having that breakdown, you landed on the chart, right, of comparisons. Is there a next step from there? Like I imagine I would start to identify what those gaps are, and then I try to start to have quantitative statements that can speak to that. Would that be kind of the next recommendation you would make?
Yeah, exactly. So, how do you then quantify some of the things? Because really, what it comes down to is people are looking for the impact that you've had on an organization. They don't want to know what you've done, they don't want to know your responsibilities because your responsibilities don't actually set you apart from anybody else. Anybody who is an accountant has all the responsibilities of an accountant, right? And so that doesn't differentiate you from, candidate B, who is also an accountant. You have your responsibilities, they have their responsibilities. they're going to be pretty much the same. So there's nothing that sets you apart. So what sets you apart is your impact. What have you done that has helped the company drive their mission forward, drive their goals forward, achieve the things that they were looking at, their performance indicators, et cetera? What are the things that you've done that have led to that? Now, people say you can't quantify everything. Anybody who says that, like, okay, I agree, but I always challenge them, because there's usually something that will make it a little better. And we'll dig into that a little bit with Susan in a minute. But yeah, it's really about, how do you demonstrate to the company that you can do what they need, and your achievements are proof of that. Your metrics are proof of that. And so that's why that's so important.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Okay, so this is great. This is great. How do we quantify things? How do we quantify things that are hard to quantify? Or
Yeah.
sometimes I don't know, I'm not speaking for everyone, but if you've been laid off unexpectedly, you don't even have the time to go back. You didn't get the opportunity to go back and maybe be able to look up some of the reporting to be able to quantify some of those metrics. Oh, you can't hear us.
Share Susan's resume here. Okay. And I want everybody to take just like the 10 seconds I'm going to share this for, and tell me as much about Susan as you can. Okay. I'm literally going to share this for 10 seconds. So pay attention, and then I'm going to stop sharing. Ready?
Oh my God, I'm so stressed out.
Make this a little bigger. Can everyone see it? All right, time's up. So what does Susan do? You can unmute yourself. Unmute yourself. Tell me about what Susan does.
Anybody that knows me professionally is not allowed to answer this.
Wait, I don't know. Izzy, can you hear us right now? Yeah, he can. Okay. I saw talent. What did everyone else see? Oh, you want to put it?
I saw onboarding and training.
Okay.
I saw a program manager.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit about what makes Susan good at her job?
We don't know.
Do you know where does Susan live? Where can I hire her?
Toronto.
If she has to come into the office, where is she? Okay. So a couple things that stand out right away for me. I'll go back into sharing it again for you. So the reason I do that is because you've got to pass the skim test, because that's how long it takes for people to reject or sorry, release you from the process or not. Let me share this again. Okay. So a couple things that show up right away for me. I'm missing your LinkedIn profile here. You got to have it. Everybody got to have it. I need to have your city and province or state. Doesn't have to be your full address, but city and province or state are important. You can add like can work remotely or something next to it, but we've got to know, because if you are working hybrid or you're working in person, they got to know that you're around. Or in your cover letter or something, you can make it clear that you're willing to relocate or you're planning to relocate anyway, things like that, but they do need to know. It's important. Professional expertise. Now, this can be immediately changed with a summary that shows you 6 things. Okay, here are the 6 things that I want to see in everybody's summary. Your job title, number of years of experience, your let's say your specific industry. Okay, 2 or 3 very specific skills that you excel in. All right. Then I want to see a like career defining achievement that really helped you move the mission forward with a fancy metric. like a nice metric that shows that you helped the company do this, you hired this many people, you know, added this much revenue, whatever you can get there. And then number 6 is if you've got social proof, things like, you know, led talent for Fortune 500 companies, worked for this recognizable company, this company, this company, that sort of thing. So those are the 6 things.
Okay.
Okay.
And sorry, just to make sure that I understand this and everyone else understands this, you're describing a summary statement. You're looking for those 6 things, but not necessarily as 6 bullets. You just want to see those things within the bullets.
So I want to have those not as bullets, but as a short paragraph, and I'll do it right for you right now in 2 seconds.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so we're going to do this. We've already got Susan's resume there. Okay, and then we're going to do professional summary. I'm going to grab this prompt. And so you see how my prompts are very different than most prompts? Like they're long prompts, and that's because I've done a lot of work on them. And so here, this is going to give us 10 professional summaries related to Susan. Now, what you can do is, one, you got to fact check if these are in fact real. If the number, sometimes ChatGPT does hallucinate numbers, but you can go and like take different versions of this for different versions of your resume, and or you can mix and match them. So if you like, okay, program manager or recruitment and talent program manager with 10 years of experience in equitable hiring, employee engagement, and career development, okay, designed inclusive hiring frameworks and onboarding processes, reduce time to fill by 45%, you know, so this is exactly the type of thing that I want to see. It's short, but in that first thing, like as soon as you open that, I know what your title is, how much experience you have, what specific things you've done, what companies you've worked with, like in an instant, you can find all that information. And that's what really makes a big difference. Then when you're writing,
It's almost like if they're only going to read one thing, right? And if you want to hook them as quickly as possible, this is like I design landing pages and things like that as part of my job. So this feels very analogous to that idea of if they don't read what they need in that first second at the top, they're just going to close the tab and move away. And it's a similar idea in my mind.
exactly. I'm also dropping a link in the chat here. Okay, and this link, I'll just pull it up for a second. I won't actually show it here. It's not this ad, but it's someone that people have probably seen around. There's a guy, Jerry Lee, from Wong Salting. Like they have some things that, you know, they can post some controversial content, let's put it that way, but some of their stuff is great. And this is another ad. So what he's going to show in this is basically recruiters, without knowing it, having an eye tracker and reading over people's resumes and where their eyes go and how quickly they decide to move or to interview the person or to pass on them. And it's pretty wild. It's pretty much like, this is why people say it takes 6 or 8 seconds or whatever you want to say to review someone's resume. But like you can see here where she's looking.
Wow.
Okay, and it's pretty cool. And there's a noticeable, what he talks about is an F pattern. You see the top, you see the things at the very top. They spend a lot of time in the left side. So that's why anytime you're showing metrics in your resume, you want them to be at the front of your resume, at the very early parts. So that's why we talk about the XYZ format of writing achievements, which is achieved X as measured by Y by doing Z. Z for us, C for the Americans. All right, and here's another way we can do that. I'm going to share my screen again for a second here. Okay, we've got over here, write achievements for your resume. Achievements for your resume, this one.
Kudos to you on these prompts, like the time you
Thank
must
you.
have taken to put put these together. Really impressive.
Thank you. So if you're writing these like from scratch in a blank ChatGPT thing, you can like put in these things. Because I've already got that stuff at the top, I'm just going to get rid of them. And let's see now what sample achievements will look like for Susan. Okay. Recruitment efficiency, employee retention, process optimization, training, development, workforce planning, succession planning. These are examples of achievements for each of those different things for your specific job title. Okay. And you can do this for anything. And let's say, okay, Susan, what are some things that you've had trouble quantifying, or things that you want to show your experience in, but you don't know how?
Definitely the like employee engagement, performance management piece is where I've had trouble figuring out how to quantify that, because I have that experience, but it's harder for me to put that into a quantifiable achievement.
Okay, so let's look at this
Okay.
here. So engagement programs, designed and launched company-wide engagement initiatives, boosting employee participation rates. One thing I will say is beware of like throwing out percentages.
Yeah.
I always say to back it up with raw numbers if you can. So what does 50% actually represent? $5 million, $500, $5, like, you know, it's hard to tell. This is better here. Okay. But okay, so let's talk a little bit for a couple minutes about your employee engagement. So tell me a little bit, Susan, around what have you done for employee engagement in your last role? What are you proud of?
Um, I implemented a really strategic and targeted stay interview process for a large team that had very, very high turnover.
Okay. So how large was that team?
15 people. And in the span of a year, they had like a 70% turnover.
Okay. And um, and so that was the before.
That was the before.
And then what happened after?
Well, I ended up leaving the job. So I can
Right.
tell you what's happened now. But they just anecdotally, the feedback that I got from the remaining members on the team about implementing this process, of how previously they felt like their team and their department within the organization always felt like they didn't matter and that nobody was listening to them, and that just implementing the process made them feel like they belonged in the organization and that they were an important piece.
Okay. So
Hence
what
the
would you
reason I
say
don't
is
know how to quantify this.
absolutely. So what would you say is the most impactful part of that work?
For me or on that team?
For them, never about you, for them.
Thank you. Okay. Being made to feel important, being made, somebody was listening to them.
Okay. And how did that impact the company?
Their output was much more, it increased. Their, a lot of them were wanting to work from home because they didn't even want to be in the office. It increased them coming into the office for in-person events.
Mhm. Okay, so can you quantify some of those things or estimate some of those things, which are how much more employees came into the office on average? Can you think about like what's the bare minimum increase that you would save as a conservative estimate? Let's say they would come into work 1 day more a week or 5 days more per month. What can you conservatively but confidently say? And then what was the impact for the company, the output, the productivity?
Yeah.
What are ways of quantifying that? Did they save X number of hours per week? So when it comes to time saving and teams, I always love doing this. Let's say you create a process, right? And you saved time with this process. Okay, so I saved 3 hours with this process. Okay, well, how many people use that process and how many times per week or month do they use it? And then you do the math and you multiply it in this like 3-hour time savings times 15 team members. That's 45 hours. And then how many times a month do they use it? And then it really starts to add up. And so those are some really cool ways of adding in some of this extra quantified metrics. I could get into this for forever. Like I could do a whole 2-hour session on like just this, and maybe in fact we should at some point. But you know, that's really what I dig into with people. It's how to uncover the things that you don't realize that you've achieved, and how to really prop up your work and your work experience to show the achievement and impact that you've had on companies.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. This session is fantastic. I'm realizing the time, and I know people have to run. And I really do feel like we could go for a full other hour with you, Izzy, very easily. So I think for sure we'll have you back again at some point. I can't thank you enough for sharing your time, your insights, your expertise, your hacks, your resources. Like this is all just so energizing for all of us. And for anyone who's just been like putting resumes out again and again, this just gives a whole new approach and some really fantastic tools, and feels like you're taking a lot more control of the process. And it's not just the resume. Like I said, like just going through this is going to set you up for success as you continue. Or if you reach out to someone on LinkedIn and try to spark a connection after you've applied, you know exactly what you want to say in that message, right? To get their attention. So this has been really great. I don't want to hold up anyone. If you have to go, but Izzy, thank you. Any last words from you, Izzy? Anything else that you want to put out there?
I just want everyone to know that it's not you. You're not the problem. The system is broken and it's a really hard job market. But when it comes to you and your achievements, don't let all of this affect your own self-worth. And being in a community like this is the biggest, best thing you can do, where you support one another, where you get to know one another and share resources and tips and opportunities. And for those of you who are interested, I dropped in some of the links that I talked about right in the chat here, so you can grab them before it ends, and then I'll pass them to Amy somehow. But the Recruiters and Resumes is that YouTube video with Jerry Lee. Notebook LM is in there. I also added 2 other links to, one is 1,500 achievements for 75 different job titles, which is a free resource that I have, which is just a big spreadsheet. And then the other is access to my ChatGPT power prompts, which you can check out as well.
Wow, this is amazing stuff. So if you're a member of the Seeker Society, we will be sharing this on our exclusive Slack channel. If you're not a member, go to theseekersociety.com. Just go through a couple questions and we'll let you into the Slack group. Izzy, and reach out to Izzy directly, you know, connect with him, follow him, refer him. Like this is some really, really great stuff. And thank you so much. Izzy, Mike, if you guys can just hang on with me for a second, and I'll say thank you to everyone else for coming. Enjoy your day. Happy hunting.